Well, welcome to another episode of Light Vision Art Q&A. I am your humble host, Alfonso Ashworth. Of course, we welcome you to the broadcast. Of course, we broadcast weekly on Saturday mornings from 10 to 11. Of course, you can be a part of the show. You may have saw the banner that was up just a second ago with the Light Vision Art banner. Of course, you can also find us, like I said, on Saturday mornings. You can be a part of the show. You can join in on the show either by being a guest. I invite guests on my panel. Of course, this is Labor Day weekend and people are milling about and going about. But of course, we always talk about being in the dark room in use. You will hear me talk about this quite often about being in the dark room. It's not suited for everyone, but everyone should try at least once to get in a dark room or be a part of that. Many of my students, former students, or people who have been in my class, many of them in the past have been a part of the dark room. They have had an opportunity to go either as students or former students in school or high school or college or even in their profession. Some have worked in a dark room. And of course, you can be a part of that show that I'm with on weekdays. I'm part of a radio program called Lion Chasers Radio, of course, with Lonnie Poindexter as the host. I guest host for him on Wednesdays, and we have a broadcast that covers the nation. It's a call in program as well. And you can find us at urbanfamilytalk.com. So go there, check it out. If you want classes, this is the time to sign up. My fall winter class is preparing. It's going to start first class is going to be September the 13th. And I see that Jeff has jumped into our group. We'll get him on in just a minute. Of course, if you want to be a part of the classroom, get in that Light Vision Art, the Educated Eye, 16-week class, goes by pretty fast. Of course, you'll see my ugly mug in there, along with the material, along with the information that we share, and we give you assignments, and we make sure that you try to learn it in the right way. But of course, you can't do none of this without great lenses. I recommend that you use WeBeLenses.com. Jim and Mary and Young, go to WeBeLenses.com to get your high quality, state of the art Canon lenses. You can get the lenses, rent those lenses, rent equipment faster and more reasonable price at WeBeLenses.com. So, of course, we are chiming in this morning. I see my friend Jeff is in the queue. Let's get Jeff in just to give him a shout out. Hey, Jeff, how you doing, my friend?
Good
Good
morning.
morning. Well, welcome to the show this morning. Of course, we are on a holiday weekend. So I think Claudia, she's not going to be with us this morning. But how's your weekend? You feeling better?
Yes, I am. It
Great. I'm
crud
glad to.
finally went away.
Well, that crud stuck around. It. I think I had a little bit of that as well, but I'm glad it's gone now for me anyway.
Yeah, last time I talked to you, you had like a touch of food poisoning or something
Yeah,
going on.
man. Yeah, that food poisoning, it got me down, but I'm a lot better. I feel a lot better. At least I was able to get out and do some things that I need to get done. But of course, how's Joni? She doing great.
She's doing fine.
Well, that's good. That's great. But we're going to be talking about sports this morning. We're going to be talking about equipment with sports. We may have some other people that may chime in. If not, we're going to go with the show. I'm going to be showing some gear. You've seen some of this stuff. This lens sitting behind me right here, this is a 400 millimeter, 4.5 4.5, I think, is the widest aperture. And then, of course, I've got this monstrosity right here. This is a 300 millimeter 2.8 that I have, and we're going to talk about that with in terms of sports equipment, that you not only the equipment part, but also the how to handle the equipment and how to get the most out of it. But any case, and of course I'll have you chime in on that. But before we get started, let's do a little advertising. Of course, we'd like to advertise our guild group. Of course, we're going to be meeting. We won't have a meeting this month, but we will be meeting in October. We're going to be at the Corner Pub in Mount Juliet, Tennessee. It's easy to find. You're going to go, of course, go into Mount Juliet, and it's going to be on Mount Juliet Road. It's right off of the road. You won't go very far. You'll see some other businesses, but look for the Corner Pub between the lakes. And of course, come and join us there. We have food. We're going to show photographs. And I think we're going to be getting prepared for Oktoberfest. So I'm sure there's going to be some things that we're going to be talking about with that. And of course, Jeff is in that group with us. We always have a good time, don't we, Jeff?
Sure do. Got some great photographers in that group too.
Yeah.
I mean, you get inspiration from these guys.
Yeah, and gals. That's for sure.
Yeah, and gals.
Yeah.
There's some gals in there that do better than the guys.
That's the truth. And we're proud of all of our group, and it grows and it comes and goes. But we alternate between Mount Juliet and Lebanon, Tennessee. So catch us in Mount Juliet on October, the first Monday of October. And then the following month, we will be back here in Lebanon, Tennessee at the Panturos restaurant. Of course, this is at 6:30 in the p.m. So come early, get you some food, socialize, and then enjoy the festivities. Of course, you can find me on my website as well. Go to lightvisionart.simdiff.com. You can go there. I've got information on the website for you about the classes. Also, you can see other information that may be helpful in legal matters and some tips. We're big about giving tips as well. But of course, Jeff, when it comes to photographing sports, one of the drawbacks that I see is not so much how much equipment people have. You can, okay, let me tell you, by the way, if you want to call in on the show, if you got something you want to say, if you're a viewer and you want to call in at 615-547-3355. We'll get you on air if you got a comment or a question, or you can email me at lightvisionart@gmail.com. Equipment. I see people with, some of the equipment that I'm showing here. I hardly ever see people with this here, a light meter. I never see them with a light meter, hardly. But a light meter is really, really important to have in your bag, especially if you're going to be shooting under difficult lighting situations, especially at, say, a football game, and part of the field is not as lit properly as the other. And, you may have good lighting in the middle of the field, poor lighting on each end zone, especially in high schools. You really could take about a few minutes to take a couple of readings so that you can see the difference in the exposures. So if you have to make adjustments, you can have those numbers already with you. And a handheld light meter is convenient because, look, I don't want to be lugging this around all the time and trying to get light readings. So a handheld light meter. And I know I tell people this right here is a necessary evil. Of course, this is a flash. And I tell people it's a necessary evil. But in some cases, you have to use flash in some circumstances, especially in nighttime sports where it is allowed. It's not always allowed. And you have to make sure that you get permission if you're going to be using flash. And any thoughts on something like that, Jeff? I know that there's things like monopods and you know all
Hold, holding that camera, if you're not on a tripod, holding that camera still, it's a good thing to practice.
yeah, the camera handling techniques is something I see that people don't pay much attention to. Matter of fact, I was watching a sporting event recently, and it was a televised football game, and they were highlighting one of the photographers at the game. She happened to be the mother of one of the football players, the quarterback, and they were highlighting this lady because she not only is a parent, but she does the photography for the university as well. So she gets down on the sideline, and she had a zoom lens. It appeared to be maybe in that range of 100 to 600 millimeter type range that you see. Maybe I think Sigma's got one that's a 150 to 600. And I know different manufacturers make these lenses. And she had a monopod. She had it on a monopod. But I constantly saw her do this right here, where she had her hand on top of the lens, focusing and zooming. And I could tell by the way she was doing that, she was probably having to shoot with a high ISO because of the shake or the movement that she was probably getting. A lot of the blur that you get is not from the subject. Sometimes it's from the photographer not holding the equipment properly. So that camera shake, of course, can be avoided just by what Jeff just said, holding that camera right. Of course, you've learned how to do that, Jeff, right?
Yep. Sure thing.
And you don't shoot.
Pro.
Yeah, yeah, but you don't shoot a lot of sports per se, but you shoot. You do shoot some action.
Yeah, I shoot a little bit of wildlife, but
Yeah.
I don't do a lot of sports stuff.
Well, the wildlife stuff can be just as challenging.
Yeah.
Because of the erratic behavior of some of your subjects. I mean, a bird in flight, or a frog sitting on a stump, or just things like that. You don't always know what the animal's going to do and when it's going to do it. Whereas with sports, if you follow the sport, you can sort of pre-plan and predict what's about to happen. For example, especially with football, I always sort of think of football as being divided up into segments on the field. Your quarterback, your backs, your line. Then you have your wide receivers, your wideouts, and your outbacks. So if you sort of know the team and know the players and know who the stars are, you can sort of predict what may happen just by getting ahead of the shot. But you can't do that with wildlife all the time.
Right.
And that's very challenging. And I can see where wildlife photography in some respects is probably more difficult than sports in terms of predicting the shot. We got a viewer in the queue. Welcome to the show. If you want to ask the question, if you're viewing this on our YouTube channel, make sure that you click the little square box at the top of the video screen, and it will allow you to ask a question or make a comment. But either case, or you can always call in. If you want to call in on the show, call at this number, 615-547-3355. I've did a lot of photography, and of course, we just finished up doing the fair. We just finished our fair, and Claudia, who's not going to probably be on the show today, she was able to do some shots, and I'm going to show just a few of them that she did from the fair. These are timed exposed shots. I think she said they were no more than 5 to 10 seconds exposure times, but she was able to get some really cool shots of the rods and the people. Here's another. This is a wide angle or a shot that she was able to do to capture some of the motion, timed exposures. And then this one here was really good because it has people in the foreground. You got people moving about. And you can only imagine if this was a sporting event or something like a basketball game, a baseball game, a football game, you're not going to have no 5 to 10 second exposure times to work with. You're going to have to work in the shutter speeds that are quite fast in terms of 1/250th of a second or 1/500th of a second. So you're going to probably be shooting with high ISO numbers. Even if you have a lens, like I showed you just a minute, I'll show you again. This next shot that she did was like a still shot. So this gives you an idea of the difference in the range of exposure times that you may have in a timed exposed shot or a night shot. But I thought I would show those. But of course, I was showing this morning a lens like this. Well, a lens like this, if you can get your hands on one, especially if it's new, you're going to give anywhere from $3,500 to $5,000 for a 300 millimeter 2.8. Now that bad boy right there is heavy.
Yep.
And I've used them, and I'm telling you, I'm a pretty decent sized person, and I'm fairly able to carry a lot of weight. But a lens like that at a football game, and you're running up and down the field, you're having to move. I mean, because they don't play the game in the one zone. They move about. And if you don't have yourself in good condition to where you can tote and carry something like that, you're going to suffer for it the following day. I have no doubt about it. And that's the same with wildlife. Ain't that right, Jeff? If you're out and about. That's
right. I've got a big one that I tote some, and I'm trying to get away from toting it because it's hard. It's hard on you when you tote that much equipment. We do a lot of long hikes, so it gets heavy.
Right. Which one are you talking about? Which lens are you using that you're referring to?
I've got a Sigma 150 to 500. That's it's a big boy. But it'll. I don't know if you can see that.
Yeah, I can see it very well.
So it's about a 3.5 pound or so lens.
Right. And like I said, it's a pretty good size lens. And if you have older lenses, like this one behind me, like I'm showing you here, they're twice as heavy.
Mm-hmm.
They're twice as heavy. They still, the frame is an alloy that's heavier. The glasses are heavier. I mean, the lens construction, the body weight, all of that is much heavier than the lenses they make today. But even at that weight that you're talking about, hiking or, traveling up and down a field, or, basketball games are not as bad because you stay on one end of the court or the other. So you'll have a group of photographers on one end shooting the action, a group on the other, because you can't run up and down the court. And then they'll have, the video people, and you'll have a crow's nest sometime where they can get shots. And then they'll have shots on the backboards. A lot of time you'll see small cameras in different parts of the arena. But for you, the sports photographer for soccer, say if you're a soccer mom or soccer dad, you're not going to probably invest that type of money in those type of lenses. You're just
Yeah.
not going to probably
No.
do it. You're going to go flop down $5,000 and you're thinking about student tuition or getting your kids the materials to go to school. You're going to have a hard time trying to convince your spouse to spend that kind of money for, just a few games for your child playing soccer or playing on a junior league football team. But now, if you get into college sports, those parents, if they can get access, they can spend that kind of money. This is what I recommend. I highly recommend you rent the lenses first before you go, even if you can afford to buy. I'll tell you a quick little story. Years ago, I purchased a Sigma. Sigma, when they first come out with their APO type glass, that's supposed to be in true color, true sharpness, and a whole lot of things to compete with the big boys like Nikon and Canon. They come out with a 300 millimeter 2.8. It was about half the price of Canon. It was about half the price of Canon.
Yeah.
And I jumped on it. I thought, well, that's perfect. I mean, I can save myself, a couple of grand, get that lens. And because I was shooting a lot of horse shows at that time, a lot of indoor and outdoor arena stuff. Well, I got the lens, and I'm not sure if it was just a bad glass or the focusing mechanisms weren't as accurate as they should have been. But almost immediately, I started noticing I wasn't getting critical sharpness, like in the small detail. The lens looked sharp for general use, but if I was talking about, how much dirt is popping up when a horse comes through, you couldn't see some of the sharpness in the small detail. So I did some tests on the lens of my own, and I talked to the manufacturer. I talked to their technical people. And of course, they were just getting into that arena. So I decided to send the lens back and go ahead and bite the bullet and get the 300 millimeter 2.8 Canon, which I owned for a few years. But this is the deal, Jeff. A lot of times the lens sat in a corner in its box.
Yeah.
And I just started noticing that. I started noticing the lens was in its case more than I was using it. So at that point, when I stopped shooting a lot of horse events and was doing more weddings and those sort of things, I sold the lens. I sold it. I pretty much got my money for it because it was still a popular lens. But what you want to do is look around for used lenses. You may have to do some shopping. You may have to do some waiting, but you can find some pretty good deals on some of the older lenses, like the one behind me here, that 400 millimeter. I got it for $100, $100.
Yeah.
And it works great. It's a good lens. It's clean, still heavy. It's manually focused. It's a manually focused lens, but compared to what you give for the typical comparative lens, it's fractions on that. What do you think in terms of used lenses, used equipment, and that sort of thing?
It's out there. You like you say, you got to look, and you got to be careful too with a lot of used lenses. If you get something that's fairly old, it depends on if the person that's taking care of it. If they've stored it, um, in a damp place, the blades will hang or no longer work at all. So the other thing is it's lens mold. A lot of lenses will get that.
Right.
The other issue that I'm finding is people, the old lenses have grease in them. And whether you know it or not, they grease that threads, and that if you put them in a hot car, that grease will get off on the aperture blades and hang them aperture blades. So there's a lot of, you got to be careful with some of the old stuff, but it's out there, and you could still shoot it. So it shoots, a lot of it shoots pretty good.
Right.
With the advent of stabilization back into the body of some of the cameras, you can take that old lens and do pretty good with it.
Right. And it's a great lens for the amateur.
Yeah.
It's good for the amateur, the person that's
and a lot of them are good old lenses. They've got a character to them. They may not be super sharp, but they give you a little different look than, maybe and some of the people really like that look, that antique look and things like that you get.
Well, nowadays lens distortion is a big draw. People they like those old lenses for the distortion, the flare of the light, it's not perfectly sharp on one side versus, just because were not that manufactured that good back in the day. But nowadays people look for that and will even look for apps to create that illusion. So they'll go and buy some of these older lenses just to get that distortion.
Yeah.
So that's another point. But as you just said, I think it's more critical for the amateur to go that route at first, because or rent them. Go to WeBe Lenses or go to some of your rental places.
Borrow Lens. There's a rental place also out in Cool Springs area. I've rented from too. So.
Okay. So there's other places that you can rent local or rent online.
Yeah. If you're needing good Canon, WeBe Lenses.
Yeah, is WeBeLenses.com. Go there if you got Canon. And if you want to adapt old lenses, I know that manufacturers don't like me telling this little secret, but you can buy adapters. This is a Canon body. This is an older 5D with a Nikon lens on it. So
I thought I seen that when you flip that board.
Yeah. So you can put adapters. The adapters run anywhere from $25 to $45, maybe a little more depending on which body you have. But you can put those adapters on and convert. It's basically a converter, so that you can put older lenses on the newer camera bodies. I have experimented with it, and I'm going to be quite frank with you. Some of the quality is better. Some of it is better in terms of the tonal qualities that I see. The flesh tones seem to be more rich. It may not be as sharp, but you get some of that analog feel to your images. It would be almost like listening to an old vinyl record through a quadraphonic sound system.
Yeah.
And that warm sound that you get. Hi, Joni. How you doing?
She can't hear you right now.
Can you hear me right now?
Put your earphones on. He's telling you hello.
Oh.
She's probably busy. She's probably busy.
That's about all.
She's been looking at an organ this morning, son.
Oh, okay. That's, somebody gave me a really old organ once. I forgot who it was. It was one of those got the vacuum tubes and stuff in it. And I decided I was going to repair it. And I did. I got it sounding pretty decent, but it never was, I wasn't somebody that knew how to fix the thing. So I eventually gave it to a church. But it was a really nice organ. It was one of the older style. But Joni, when are you going to buy that next top of the line lens that we're talking about today?
I don't know. Which one are you talking about?
She just walked in on this.
I just walked in.
We're talking about shooting sports. Of course, Jeff has that 150 to 600. And I was just showing off my 300 millimeter 2.8 that you guys have seen in the classroom.
Gracious.
And when you go out to shoot wildlife or sports, more so than the equipment is what we're talking about, has to do with technique, camera handling techniques, holding the camera properly so it does not wear you down and wear you out before the action gets started. And Jeff was talking about you guys hiking. Of course, carrying all that gear. I don't know how much prep time y'all put into packing your stuff and making sure your weight is equivalent to how much you can carry during a day. But I know some people do that. Do you guys get into that part, Jeff, when y'all are getting ready to go hiking? Do you think about how much weight you carry?
Yes. Yeah, that's
But you couldn't tell it by what we take.
yeah. I like I say, I'm trying to stop carrying that big lens, because I've carried it. That lens is probably good 6 years old.
Right.
It just, the old back is not handling it real well anymore. So
right. The shoulder.
The water's heavy. The water bottles get heavy.
Yeah. By the time you take a couple of bottles of water and a couple of snacks, and I've got a couple of lenses I always want to carry. So I've got usually have more than one in the pack. So
what about sensor? With the sensors getting better, I sort of wish Christopher was on this morning because he's got a lot of knowledge in that area. But with the sensors getting better and the cropping resolution getting better, how much do you think it's going to become less important to have these really long lenses over the next few years? Do you see it getting where we don't have to have those lenses?
Well, it's a double-edged sword. The higher megapixel the sensor, the better the quality of the lens you're going to have. So, you're going to have to put more into the money. Most of the lenses right now has a resolving power about, you're about 24 to 36 megapixels cameras is about all you've had. And that's high, because most of the lenses were designed around earlier formats of that. So, that, the lenses, the quality of the lenses is going to have to get better, or you're going to get crappy pictures with that high megapixel camera. So.
Well, and I think most people have trouble trying to understand that. Of course, if you want to call in, if you're listening, call in 615-547-3355, and you can get in on live on air, or you can join us in our email at lightvisionart@gmail.com. But as you just stated, Jeff, it is a double-edged sword. It's like the dog chasing the tail. Going around and around in a circle, because we get better sensors, then we need better lenses.
Yeah. The higher megapixel does lead you to really, really cropping, though. It's amazing. It's amazing how far you can zoom in on a picture and still be fairly sharp nowadays.
Right.
My 24 megapixel, it amazes me. Let's put it that way. On a good screen where you can see what's going on, you can really zoom in there and get some quality still.
Yeah. But how far, that's the question. Like if your subject, say if we're shooting a typical football game and I'm sitting in the stands, not down on the sidelines, I'm not going to be able to use my standard 50 millimeter and crop in close to, say, the quarterback, But if I have a 200 millimeter or even a 300 millimeter, I may be able to get some decent stuff, but not none of that right in their eye, right up on their face type stuff.
Right.
Yeah. That's where you really got to have that that you got to get closer. You need closer to the action. And I tell photographers, if you're going to stand in the stands or you're going to be at the nosebleed section, don't assume or don't even imagine that you're going to get these type of shots that you see in Sports Illustrated and some of these things. These photographers have the perfect vantage point of being down on the field, down there with the action. And we talk about this all the time when you're shooting animals, or if you're shooting flowers, or if you're shooting wildlife. You need to get the right perspective or get in the right location to capture that image or capture that animal so that the viewer can get a sense of being there. So we discussed that quite a lot in class as well. If you speaking of class, if you want to get in my class, I do a 16-week class. Let me jump over to the advertisements just a little bit. You can get into light vision art. The Educated Eye, the fall winter class is going to start September the 13th. We already got students lining up for that. You can get in the classroom and, of course, see my ugly mug as well. And so, of course, you can catch me during the weekdays as well on a show called Line Chasers Radio with Lonnie Poindexter. I am his guest host on Wednesdays at UrbanFamilyTalk.com. But anyway, back to what we're discussing. We're talking about sports, being a good photographer with sports, and I showed earlier this right here. You need one of these in your bag. I don't care who you are. You need a good light meter. So go spend a couple of $100 to $400. Get you a good light meter. It will last you for a very long time. I've had this one. This is a little Minolta. I've had this light meter for several years. Still works great. And of course, if you're going to use flash, make sure you use a professional model flash. I'm not big on sports and flash because most of the time people don't like it. Most of the time the subjects don't like you using flash at the sporting events. Thank God for these high ISOs for people because they're shooting poor lenses. They're shooting lenses, these what they call kit lenses. And these lenses lock down at 3.5 on the high end open aperture. And they'll lock down to small apertures depending on how much you zoom. And that's what causes all the issues. But of course, I got Jeff with me this morning, Jeff Coleman. He's knowledgeable with some of this in terms of wildlife. I imagine Jeff would make a good sports photographer as well. If you can shoot a bird in flight, surely you can capture a football player catching a football. So it's probably some of the same techniques that you would use, but still camera handling techniques, holding that camera properly, getting your breathing correct, getting your posture correct. I lost you there, Jay. Are you showing me a screen? You got something showing? Oh, okay. Here we go.
I'll show you. You're talking about zooming and
right.
What can you do? This picture's about, gosh, I'm way over 1,000 yards away. I'm sure this,
right.
And, you can easily zoom in 200% or so, and you can tell, you can tell who they are.
Right. You can tell the people, and you can't expect that to be a sharp image.
No,
because they're moving.
Yeah, they're moving too.
Yeah, and to have that sort of detail, even zoom. How much zoom is that, Jeff? In terms of how much?
I'm sure that was shot at 100 at 500 probably.
Okay.
I'm sure that.
I didn't know how much zoom factor I'm talking about on your screen.
Oh, on my screen, I'm in at 200%.
Okay, so you're going from.
I can probably get into. It starts really pixelating, but Yeah, you can. I mean, you can tell who they are. I mean,
Yeah, but
that's
like I said, at over 1,000 yards. Now, if you were shooting one of these new Hasselblads medium formats, I mean, you'd probably be able to zoom in and see their eyeball.
yeah.
But you got to go spend $35,000 or more.
That won't be happening.
No, it won't be happening in here either. We got another viewer that's jumped in and viewing the show. Welcome to Light Vision Art Q&A. We got Jeff Coleman with us this morning. We're talking sports and we're talking about equipment. We're talking about the do's and don'ts of purchasing equipment. If you are an amateur, I'm going to reiterate this. If you are an amateur photographer, you are a weekend warrior. You're just somebody who gets your gear out to go out and have fun. One of the best things you can do if you want to shoot these big lenses, like I'm showing right here, this 300 millimeter 2.8, or if you want to shoot the lens that Jeff is shooting, he's got a Sigma 150 to 600. Do your homework and make sure that you can do it affordably and physically. What I mean, you're going to be surprised how much weight you're carrying around when you start hiking up a hill or running this on the sideline of a football field. You're going to be first quarter, you're going to be done. I promise you, if you're not physically ready to manage that sort of weight and physically ready to endure the entire event, you're going to be physically worn out. And like Jeff is talking about, the next trip, you're going to leave that bad boy at home. Because like Joni said, if you're hiking, you're carrying water and snacks and all sorts of other things that you need to be out in the wild. You may be out there all day, or you may be camping out for that matter. Do you guys do any camping, Jeff? Is that something that you guys do? Do y'all ever camp?
Camping don't have bathrooms and showers and washing. somebody doesn't do that.
Well,
Not anymore.
Not anymore.
That was before meeting Jeff.
No, me, that's a different story. I don't care.
I was getting ready. I'm gonna get you in trouble, but I used to be a big time fisherman. Would be out and we'd fish all day and all night, and we would sometimes sleep in the back of the truck. If it had a camper on it, so we could get up early and get that shoot in, catch that early fish. But I'm telling you, photography is a different animal. It's a different animal altogether.
Yeah.
Because you're doing a lot of mental thinking too. You're doing a lot of mental exercises. If I'm fishing, yes, I'm doing a lot of thinking about my location, my depth, my lures, my rig that I want to use and all of that. But it's more of an exercise of repetitive motion, casting, reeling, moving, trolling, all those things. And you got a boat that's doing a lot of the work for you, But for photographers, you do a lot of mental exercises too that no other sport may require. What I mean by that, you have to do a lot of prep work. You're planning for what's coming in fractions of seconds. You're planning for what's going to happen in fractions of seconds. And it's not like anything else that I've ever experienced in terms of shooting an event, because you can be your brain will be totally melted by the end of the day. I mean, you don't have one more room for one more thought. And before the event, your anxiety is very high too, because if you're shooting a wedding that's a one-time deal.
Yep.
So if you're doing a wedding, that's a one-time deal, and you're not gonna get to do a do-over, and you can't go back and get a mulligan.
Yeah.
You won't be able to get a mulligan, and nobody's gonna cut you any slack if you didn't get the shots that you had promised. So it's very stressful, and sports can be dangerous. I've done sports when I did horse shows. I got a knee to this day that was totally torn all to pieces because I was shooting a horse event and I got caught up in the railing on a fence, and the animals were coming toward me, and I tried to get out of their way, and I caught a leg between the top rail and the bottom rail. And when I fell, my knee stayed up there. My leg stayed caught between the two rails, but I had my camera bag and all that with me. So I'm sort of just going with the gravity. Well, Jeff, it tore up my knee so bad. I winded up, of course, I thought it wasn't as bad at first because it was numb. You know, so I thought, oh, okay, it's not that bad. I'm good. I can get up. Yeah, after I woke up from passing out and everybody's standing around me, are you okay? Are you okay? And I'm like, yeah, I think I'm okay. And I got up and walked around a little bit. And I thought, yeah, I'm pretty good. Yeah, about 6 hours later, I was in the emergency room where that knee had just swole just so big. And of course, it still gives me trouble. I mean, it's still so. And I know people who have died doing this, whether they're out there and don't know what they're doing, or they're trying to do something that they're not experienced with, and they get hurt physically, or they die trying to get that great shot. So make sure that you go prepared for emergencies. That's always important. And make sure you got a backup plan. Don't go travel halfway across the country with one camera.
Yeah.
What do you
Don't do something stupid either. I mean, there's a lot of people trying to do these selfie things now, and they're getting themselves in trouble. So that you know, you got to have a little smartness to what you're doing.
Yeah, I read a story where a lady moved to I forgot what country it was, but it was one of those tourist places, and she had just moved there, and she had went to one of the locations that's supposed to be famous for doing selfies. And it's a shot where you look over a cliff and you see like the horizon type shot. And she wasn't familiar with the area, and she slipped and fell. On the very day she had moved there, she slipped and fell to her death because she went over the little wall, the retainer wall that they have there, and she tried to get a selfie, and she slipped and fell off, and the people there tried to save her, but of course it was too late. So as Jeff just said, don't put your life in danger trying to get that bird's eye view of something or a first person view of a shot, and you're going to get run over or fall off of something, and you may be crippled for life, or you may be no longer with us. So that was good advice. Of course, going camping and doing those things, or going hiking, also be careful of what you pick up. Ain't that right, Jeff? The plant.
Yeah. Where you step.
Yeah.
You never know where there's a snake or something. So.
Well, we showed a snake in class just recently, where one of my former students, she found a couple of rattlesnakes near her porch at her cabin, and of course she did something they tell you not to do, but I think I would have done the same thing. She'd done away with them. But like you just saying, watching where you step, watching where you. And,
you can walk up on some wildlife too. Most of the time they're scared of you than you're scared of them. But we have walked up right up on a bear. Didn't realize it was just sitting at the side of a path, just sitting there eating, and we walked right up on it. Couldn't see it.
Well, and I worry for people who go on these hikes and they go on these places and they've never been before. And not only do they put the animals in danger, sometime when they try to interact with the wildlife, but they also put their own lives in danger because, as you just saying, bears, no matter how cute they are, they can do a lot of damage. Even a small bear, if you get too close, can do a lot of damage to you physically. And of course, I would hate to see something like that happen to a person that's just trying to get a cute shot. Now, of course, we got a member, Scott Robertson, that's in our guild. He's probably him and Dagmar. They do a lot of that type of shooting, and they're constantly reminding us as photographers to keep our distance, to not try to interact with the animals.
And you'd be surprised how many people just want to walk right out there to the animals. I mean,
right.
It just floors me every time I'm in the mountains and see that. It just.
They've been watching too many Facebook videos and too many cartoons.
What I understand, the bears usually don't get aggressive unless you get between them and their cubs. But you never know. It's a wild animal. You don't know what's going to set it off.
Yeah, and even in sports photography, if you're on the sideline, you're going to get run over at some point. And you see it, and they play it on ESPN's highlight reel, where some photographer gets, bulldozed by, a running back or a linebacker or somebody. And they are coming at full speed, and sometimes they can't stop. So you better learn how to take a lick if you're going to be in sports photography. You better learn to take a blow.
You see them get run over a lot, especially, in even basketball, where they're all sitting at the end of the court.
Yeah, they pay a high price for it.
And the other thing is just one of the little league games that just happened.
Series.
The photographer was behind the batter, and they hit a foul ball, I think he hit a foul ball, and it went right through the lens of that camera. So it said several $1,000s worth of camera equipment just went down the drain. Yeah.
Well, insurance, you better have your insurance in place. Look, if you've got a $15,000, and people laugh at me or think I'm crazy when I tell them what some of those lenses cost. Some of those lenses costing $15,000, $20,000 per lens. And you don't own those lenses, you rent them, but somebody's got to carry insurance on them. And if you know that you're at a baseball game and a lens may get hit, or if you're at a football game and a 300-pound, 350-pound linebacker or lineman fall on that lens, it ain't going to end pretty.
No.
And in basketball, you're dealing with hardwood courts. The lens is going to get hit. The cameras are going to fly. The people are going to go like bowling balls. They're going to just bowl over them like bowling balls. And so, of course, that's just a part of knowing the environment that you're in. And we're talking about that today. Whether you're shooting something like this behind me, the 404, or if you're shooting this big gigantic thing right here, 300 millimeter 2.8, or if you're shooting with your kit lens, you still have to keep safety in mind, and you still have to do good camera handling techniques, and you still should prep and plan and keep your gear in good working condition. Somebody come in a panic today, 2 days ago, Jeff. They come in here in a panic, and she was one of my former students. She was actually a pretty good student. And she said, my shutter won't work. My camera won't shoot. And she's shooting a Nikon, a nice one. I can't remember the model number, but it's one of the full frame jobs. And sure enough, the camera was on, but you pushed the shutter release button and it wouldn't do anything. So I asked her, do you have a remote? Will it trigger from a remote? She said, I don't have it with me, but I have one at home. So, of course, I did the regular routine, took the card out, took the battery out. But, Jeff, when I took the battery out, the camera didn't go off. It stayed on. The screen, the top panel stayed on. And I've not seen that before. And I told her, I said, it sounds like you're going to be sending this camera back to the manufacturer. But what I did, I put the battery back in, put the car back in, and still it wouldn't shoot. It still wouldn't trigger. So I thought, let me take the battery back out, take the car back out. And I held the shutter button down for about 10 seconds like that. And the display went off. I don't know why, but it did. It went off. Put the camera battery back in, put the car back in, the camera worked fine again.
Yeah, it's a computer.
Yeah, but I told her, I said, this is going to happen again. This is going to happen again. And this is your only camera. And she had a shoot to do this weekend. I said, you got to have some other means to another box with a hole in it. You cannot assume that your camera is always going to work every time that you turn it on. So you got to have access. I don't even care. You can have access to a less quality camera body as long as your lenses are fit on it. And you're better off than having nothing at all. So make sure that you have a backup camera body if you're going to be shooting for other people or have something very important that you're going to shoot. Of course, I want to thank Jeff Coleman and Joni. She jumped in today. I probably interrupted Joni from doing her chores this morning. But of course, if you guys have something planned, y'all be careful. Claudia, our other panelist, she's out today doing some things. I think they wanted to get out and enjoy the weekend.
Yeah.
So I want to tell her, she's out there, she's listening anywhere, to be safe. She knows how to be safe though. She's very cautious. And Jeff, you and Joni, you guys be safe as well. Of course, I appreciate you jumping in and helping me out this morning, sir.
You're welcome.
All right. Of course, that was Jeff Coleman. He is one of my standbys. He's always a part of the show. But as always, we're getting ready to wrap things up again. Of course, I'm Alfonso Ashworth, the host of Light Vision Art Q&A. You can be a part of the show. You can join us on the show. You can be a panelist on the show if you got something to say. Just let me know. We'll get you in on the panel. Or you can watch the show as we live broadcast on our YouTube channel. And you can see the replay of the show at a later date. Of course, it's always fun being on the show, but as always, all good things must come to an end. And as always, I like to tell you to not expect a gift, but be a gift. So if you have some knowledge, you want to share that knowledge. Don't always be greedy with your knowledge. Share it with others so that they can enjoy it as well. But I want to say God bless you. God bless America, and peace.